Whatever it is.
What are you singing about there?
Since the daughter is in chorus, she's always just like, and everybody's always trying to sing this or that, and this person's not a tenor. And I was just like, do they sing really low like this? And she goes, no, that's a bass. And I was like, I know. She's like, and then I would switch to another one, and she's like, that's a tenor. I'm like, yeah.
How many octaves you got, Cormac? How many octaves you got? This is the true test of...
I don't know. I think because my voice is naturally low and bassy that it's bass, tenor.
Whatever comes after that.
Yeah.
Alto?
What does come after?
I am not a vocalist.
She's a soprano. Hey.
Hey, Tony.
Exactly. So she's a soprano, so I don't even know where I fall.
Yeah,
I know that I can sing perfectly on key with 311 because I was doing that today.
Where's your preferred location for singing? Is it in the car? Is it in the shower?
Where is my preferred location of singing? I would most certainly
like
say
what
it's
situation? In the car?
I'm pretty positive it's 100% the car because no one roll the windows up, crank the tunes up, and no one can hear.
Yeah, it's like your own sound booth.
Scream.
Your sound booth hurling down the road. Yeah, a quiet scream.
Yeah. It's like,
my preferred location for singing is when I have all of the protective gear on and I'm out with the weed whacker going after the hillside. Yeah. There's like a gas mower just overtaking me, but I've got my noise canceling headphones in and I can't tell. So sounds good. I sound the best.
Yeah.
My neighbor said she heard me singing one day and I was like, oh, okay.
You're like, cool.
That's not going to stop me if that's what she was trying to do.
Yeah. So I went to a webinar today. The only reason I signed up for the webinar is because it was Architect's Newspaper, sponsored by BQE, and the presenter, because it was like knowing your value as an architect. And guess who the speaker was? I'll give you one hint. They were speaking about the business of architecture.
So was it Enoch Sears?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad I got that right.
Yeah. And actually, it was really good. I actually enjoyed it. He was engaging. It was really good. I kind of gave him a little shout out at the end. And it was like, hey, Cormac, really, it is a hot topic that so many people talk about, is like this failing to be able to convey the value of what an architect does to clients.
I had a really good conversation with him and Robert Ewan at the Entree Architect annual meetup last year in Austin, Texas. Yeah, it was fun to catch up with him, but also to have actually a really deep conversation about the value of an architect. So I'm sure it wasn't the seed for that topic, but it probably played into it a little bit. So I mean, probably we've been having these conversations for a long time. We, as the royal we, all of us, right? And
exactly. And now that all of my CEUs from all of the different ones have hit, I can officially say that I'm at 68.
Oh my gosh. Jeez.
68 HSWs.
Wow. So yeah, it would be cool if you could gift those to others in need.
I really, you know what? I agree with you, because I mean, I only need 24, and the 24 that I have, I did go to, I finally found a free seminar for what I've been spending now for the past few years, $150 a pop for the 2 HSWs for the Advanced Building Code for Florida. I finally found the Florida AIA puts on a day-long seminar, and you have to kind of stay for the whole thing to get the last 2 hours, which is that. Because if you kind of like pop out and pop back in, they're like, yeah, nice try. So, but I finally got my free 2 hours of Advanced Florida Building Code.
Nice. What are you going to spend that money on? You would have spent it there. What are you going to?
Woohoo!
Treat
on
yourself.
on half of a brand new tire for my truck.
another new tire for your truck.
Well, I've gotten to the
tires.
point where I got to get all the tires.
I got back from Vegas this morning, and they say if you go to Vegas on vacation, don't come back on probation.
Yeah. They also say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but it's not going to stay in Vegas because you're telling stories.
Unless you have a podcast.
Exactly. And then you're just going to tell everybody everything.
Right.
So
oh, man.
what were we there for?
Yeah, so Autodesk University 2023 just happened, and it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week. So I flew in last Sunday, and I was going to drive down there and do some rock climbing, but my buddy, he canceled on me. So I decided not to drive the 12 hours to get there. I instead had a direct flight that is an hour and a half from here.
Oh, that's not bad.
It makes a lot more sense. And I actually took an entire remote podcast recording setup and only recorded one thing, so I'm not quite sure it was worth it, but for my other podcast. But it was the guest side of things for my Troxel podcast is really there. Like,
cool.
Unbelievable concentration of AEC
that's what I was going to say. That's like literally like everybody that you talk to, Nerd Fest for them.
Yeah, it's all of them. So that was the main reason for me going. It's like when you and I go to AIA conference. It's like, let's hang out with our people and see them. Like many of these people I have never met in person. We've had episodes on the podcast, but like you and I, we didn't meet for 3 years after we had started recording this podcast 3 years before we met in person. And so just like that with many of my guests on the other show, I've never met them in person, and many that I had, but it was just great because I hadn't been to AU since 2019 in Vegas. And then they took a couple of years off and did them virtually during the pandemic. Then last year they did it in New Orleans, and I did not go to that one because of business reasons and projects and stuff. So it went back to Vegas this year because I guess the one in New Orleans wasn't that awesome. New Orleans wasn't set up for a conference as much as Vegas is, like, really, especially the Palazzo, the Venetian, the Sands Convention Center is set up for conferences like throughput. Right. So Vegas has this down. And they do a great. Autodesk spends a lot of money on this. If you wonder why Revit costs so much, like, this is why Revit costs so much. It's so they can throw a party for every year for people who use Autodesk products. And they charge people to go. So it's a big giant.
Shouldn't that be part of like your subscription price of your Revit 360 or something? For
how much Revit and every these suites of software cost and how much firms are paying. It seems like it could be. But Ryan Reynolds was the keynote speaker on the second day, and I'm sure he wasn't cheap either. Right.
So I saw that he was going to be the keynote speaker, and I had so many people. In fact, there was a contingency of folks from the office who went. And then there was a friend of mine who used to work at our office and now is at another office, and he went, and because he's kind of in the same capacity as what you used to be at your old firm, right? And so he's kind of he's that guy. Mm-hmm. He's the Evan, the East Coast Evan, and almost all of them were asking, why Reynolds? Why Ryan Reynolds? Now,
they just want.
Of course, they were all like hey, cool.
Yeah, it's like the AIA conference where they want somebody who is not in the field at all, who is somebody who would be really interesting to talk to, hear from, engaging. Yeah, so I think Ryan Reynolds has a soccer team to pay for, right? So I think it was just a really good.
Well, and also
matchup.
So at the end of the week, so you got out just in time for the flood of all of the people who were coming for the for the inaugural Las Vegas Formula One Grand Prix. Right. And he also is an investor in one of the Formula One teams.
Oh, okay.
The French Alpine team.
Oh, okay. Well, he is an investor. And that
he is an
even came
investor
up because
and
it wasn't a keynote speech that he gave. He was interviewed on stage, much like Obama was interviewed when we saw him at the Chicago AIA conference. So they're not preparing ahead of time. They're just responding in real time. And the interviewers seem to be doing a really good job, I feel like, in the last few years of really engaging with the guest. But the conversation goes all over the place that way. And they can ask questions that just people in the room want to know, like, because Ryan Reynolds is doing a bunch of different things, right? So it kind of makes sense.
I'll tell you exactly what I want to know. Does he know Revit? And is he available? Because I need some help.
You have a shortage of teammates on your projects, and,
yes,
and you would like Ryan Reynolds to fill that role.
I'm pretty sure if I can get him to be one of our draftsmen or a project architect, that I could probably get a lot more people.
You could probably get more people to show up. Yeah, you could attract talent.
I could attract talent with talent.
Right. Yeah. So that was a small piece of it, but really it was about meeting the people who've been on the show, people who I want to have on the show, seeing a lot of technology vendors sitting in classes, people talking about really amazing implementations and workflows and things that they found and research that they're doing, technology and architecture related. And then because it's Autodesk University, this is not Revit University, right?
Right.
It is, Autodesk has three main areas of focus. They've got media and entertainment, they've got infrastructure and construction, and they've got, construction falls under AEC, but they've got major other players, right? And so they've got InfraWorks, and they've got Civil 3D, and they've got a bunch of tools on the visual effects side of things, like Maya and 3D Studio Max and all those, right? So there's users from all of those platforms in not only the keynotes where they're addressing kind of their roadmap and the things, acquisitions and things that they've been doing over the last year to kind of give everybody an update and talk about how it's going. But then there's also courses that have all of that stuff in there as well. So they're really bringing the entire Autodesk user base that's willing to pay for a ticket to Autodesk University or be a representative of a firm to go and capture as much information and then take it back to their firm and disseminate it to others, things like that. So it's basically 2.5 days completely packed full of multiple channels that you could slot yourself into depending on what you want to learn or bring back to the firm. And they have all these courses recorded and you can watch them later too. So they're really kind of covering every possible way, because there's no way you could see everything that you want to see when you go there. You can catch up with it later. You can download course materials. But when you're there, you get to meet the people doing it, and you get to ask questions, and you get to hang out with them at happy hour, or you can go to dinner, or you can meet them in the community zone in between courses. There's so many chances for meeting in the hallway at events like this that you really can ask questions on the fly, and it's way different than lobbing an email over the internet to somebody and just having them ignore it. So it's a really well done event for that kind of a thing. And since I was in Vegas the last time, now there's a sphere there. Have you seen this? Somebody used the primitive tool in whatever Rhino 3D to plop a sphere down into Las Vegas.
Yeah. And it's almost everything that I've seen about this, just all of the different videos and everything else. Somebody's going to have a lot of fun with this thing over the course of its lifetime. What was interesting is U2 is currently the artist in residence at the Sphere, and saw videos of them basically kind of like yielding the floor to Formula One for the week. Right. And basically kind of like, say, all right, we're done for now. There's going to be a bunch of Formula One people here and stuff. And so it's sort of exciting. In fact, actually the Formula One track, as everybody knows, I'm a Formula One nerd or geek or, super fan or whatever the hell it is that you.
Yeah.
And if you're just not finding this out now, yes, I am quite the fan. You can't see but from the stuff behind me, but there's a couple of little replicas on the back wall there.
You can play with your
mostly
cars
all
in
Lewis.
between,
Yeah.
in between meetings.
Yeah. Mostly all Lewis Hamilton stuff because, I am a Hamilton fan. And so, please, direct your hate mail towards me, whatever.
Yes, please.
But
not me.
But it's interesting because the track actually wraps around the sphere.
Yeah.
And I saw the one little like yellow blobby guy with the little smiley face that follows like traffic and all of that other stuff. If they do that during the race, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to laugh because it will have to, it's going to be distracting as hell because, it's like as they're coming down the track and they're looping around the sphere and the thing is like following them along. I'm interested to see how that is. So of course I'm going to set up all the actual race itself is at 1 a.m. Eastern time. But because of the fact that they are racing and they kind of want to capture the lights of Vegas and, the whole strip vibe because they are driving down the strip.
Right.
They want to do it all at night when Vegas comes alive. And so they're doing it then. And
that makes sense. I actually heard a few other things that have to do with that, which I thought was interesting, which was that's during the daytime European TV hours.
Yes.
Right. So
exactly.
That has a lot to do with it. The other thing was, I guess, when they were setting up the times for this, they thought it was going to be very hot in Vegas, which it's not right now. It's not hot at all. So they were thinking, well, we'll race at night. And so the tires are going to have a hard time. The other thing I've heard about this course in particular is there are a lot of straightaways where these cars are going to get smoking fast, and then you've got a really hard turn, and it's brand new asphalt. Like they actually repaved a bunch of the roads, and the drivers are concerned that the tires aren't going to be warm enough to have enough friction, enough
grip on it.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting race.
So there's the cross between the people who think that this is going to be amazing, people who think this is going to be an absolute disaster, and then the drivers who are just like, they're already, because one of the things is they're already complaining about that they're treating this all like a circus. I'm like, they're racing in Vegas, right? Like, right. I mean, it's a circus already. It's Vegas. So, kind of got to get used to it.
Right.
The current world champion, Max Verstappen, he basically said that, he feels like that this is just a clown show. And I'm like, dude, it's entertainment. They're paying you $50 million a year, basically, to drive the car. So hush up.
Taking himself a little seriously there, sounds like.
Yeah.
Let's get back to architecture here.
Let's
Cormac.
get back to
this.
It was your fault. You started talking about racetracks and stuff.
No.
You're all about sportsing.
We will do a special episode, I think, just on the sphere. So I think we will commit to doing that because I want to do a little bit more research, but just to whet the appetite of the listeners, I got to go to the sphere twice and watch a show there. And so, yes, U2 is not there right now, which I would have preferred to see U2 there. But that
would have been fun.
Instead, they're showing movies. But the cool thing about the movie that they're showing, it's not just like a normal movie. It's very spherish. And I don't want to get too much into it right now because I want to save it for that episode. But it is really immersive, and it's more than just visual. So, again, I just want to kind of tease maybe what this is. And the other thing I'll say is that videos that you've seen online are nothing like what it's actually like to be there. There's no way to translate what you see in a camera, which is like a 2D capture of a very three-dimensional immersive environment, and it goes beyond the visual. So there's just no way to really capture that. And it really is, thinking about architecture, thinking about experience, and creating experiences, and kind of this idea of a spherical black box theater that you can pretty much do anything in is a really, really cool thing. And so I think we have a lot to talk about. And so I'm going to do a little bit of research and see what I can find regarding layouts and maybe sections and things like that. But I think we'll have a very visual presentation and conversation around the sphere. And so that'll probably be one for the YouTube side of things more than the audio. We'll probably post it in both places, but this will be more of a visual medium kind of a conversation, I think, when we do it.
I'm trying to think of, and maybe we save it for what was the one architect, like the old historic classic architect that, you saw like the sections that they did of this fully immersive sphere. Was it Latrobe?
You're going to have to do some research, and
I'm going to have to do some research, but
going to bring it to that episode.
I'm just thinking that, dude would be proud that we finally are able to achieve kind of like this vision that he probably didn't even know. He probably had a vision that of something like this, but didn't even know it was ever going to be something that would be possible. And now it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually was a really incredible experience. And I think it was even better the second time because I kind of knew what to expect. And the first one, you're like trying to balance like, oh, do I want to capture this and take it back to my family, or do I just want to experience it? And the second one, I just felt way more like I knew what I wanted to look at because I had already had the cues of where to look for certain things. And it was even more impactful, I think, the second time. So anyway, I don't want to give too much away. But
yeah, you sent me a video, and even though it kind of flattened things out, it was still pretty amazing to see. Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more. So what were some of the highlights of some of the things at AU Autodesk University?
I think that I really enjoy the show floor because that's where the activity is, and that's where people are showing off their stuff. And so there's a lot of tech vendors there from all sides of things, whether it's construction technology, fabrication and industrial manufacturing, architecture, surveying. I'm just kind of like mentally going through a lot of the things I saw. I mean, and it goes from really, really, really interesting stuff, robots and, prefab and stuff, all the way to PDFs, right? Like it's the whole gamut of new innovation.
Now, are these innovations that have, come about using some of the Autodesk technology? Because I remember when you and I were at the San Francisco AIA convention, and we went to Autodesk's headquarters and saw some of the things that they're doing there. It's absolutely amazing and mind-blowing because I didn't ever really, realize like the breadth of all of the things that Autodesk has their hands in. And it isn't just AEC. I mean, yes, that's, where they started and that's kind of their bread and butter, but there's so much more, and you were talking about like in the entertainment industry, some of my favorite films are from Studio Leica, and they, if I'm pronouncing that right, not like as in the camera, but like as in the dog the Russian dog, and Coraline and movies like that. And both in the stop motion and for like 3D printing of all of the different like facial features and stuff of their stop motion puppets to actual like digital programming and stuff.
Yeah. When we went to that exhibit, that I can't remember what that thing was called, but it's like a showroom basically where they show off how different industries are using their technologies, and they had all those maquettes from the stop motion film, and with all the facial, I think all that stuff was like 3D printed and then probably hand painted. I don't even know, but it is interesting to see all the different ways that Autodesk products are used. And then the show floor is just a lot of other vendors, right? It's Chaos and Enscape are there, and sometimes Trimble is there. And so, it just depends on what people want to show off that year.
But I mean, it's, because these are like also companion whether they're plugins or things. So like, their products can work with, Autodesk products like, Revit and things like that. And, I could open up and share my screen of like, my Revit 2023, I think, that I've got on here, and all of the different plugins that I have, and all of them are, just some of the ones, Enscape, and it's
and there's other stuff that just makes Revit work even better, right? Like I'm sure you guys, you probably use Clarity for automating certain things in Revit, like printing PDFs overnight. I heard somebody talking about they've got a plugin that will start opening your Revit file like at 4 a.m. so that when you get to the office, it'll be open.
Really? Yes. I'm going to need to talk to a lot of different people about that one, because I've talked to a little bit about my project, and it's 8 buildings kind of like all combined by one big basement. And so it's unfortunately the way to like really make it work. I don't know if we decided wrong on how to implement this.
You most definitely
did. I sort of feel we did.
Well, I mean,
but anyway,
how do you have the foresight?
The model.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The model is massive, and it takes forever to open. And I had made a mistake. Is like today I actually had a meeting with somebody and got the 15-minute notice that the meeting's coming, and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to open up my model. And I started opening up the model, and we're 40 minutes into it, and it's still opening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like,
and
all right,
there are so many people who are like, are you serious? That's how it is? And obviously it depends on the model. But for many large firms doing big projects, it can be hours to open a file.
This is crazy. This is almost 1 million square feet. We're literally like only 10 or 15,000 square feet under 1 million square feet, and it's all in this model. But it's also infrastructure models. We've got structures, we've got civil, we've got landscape model in this one, because we actually had to do a landscape model. We've got all of our MEP and everything else that are all in there. And so all of the information for this big, massive model is in there. So to automate opening that sucker up, that's pretty smart. I actually like that. I'm going to have to talk to somebody in our office about that. Hopefully they got to see that too.
So it's Imagine It Clarity, Cormac. And you can use my referral code. No, I'm just kidding. So it's a well-known and well-used product out there because of the pain that it solves, right? So those are some examples. There's also consultancies that have booths there. But I think, the thing that's really successful about Autodesk University is how they combine the show floor every day with food and drinks. So it encourages people to hang out. And we've talked about this before on the podcast. Like that is a very successful recipe for encouraging people to see more booths and even more cross-pollination between people. It's really low key. It's really conversational. It's not sales pitchy, and people, because they add those extra elements in there, and everybody's just kind of, they're not as just trying to get through something and trying to just get they're actually just open to conversation. So everybody's guard is down a little bit lower, and I think it's really successful at that. Yeah. But I think those are like the main things that they do there. I mean, and then they do a giant party at the end for everybody. So that's kind of
everybody.
The culmination.
Not just like the special ticket holders at like the AIA convention that I always seem to keep forgetting to sign up for.
Correct. Correct.
Great.
For everybody.
That's nice.
Yeah. They're very good at this event. They're very good at making it an all-inclusive event, as long as you're willing to pay for it and pay for their software throughout the year.
Well, okay. So in comparison to like, say, the AIA convention, which is, still pretty pricey, people seem to, like I know a lot of people complain about the price of the AIA convention. And it's just like, shouldn't you be spending my money on something else? Well, the thing that they seem to forget is that they're not spending your dues. They're not spending your fees on the convention. You're spending the ticket sales that they get from that are actually paying for the convention. And
it's
yes,
the
there is
sales
some money.
And
there
the
is
vendors. The vendors are paying a lot of money to have a booth there, right? So that is a huge part of that revenue coming in to make that event possible. Yeah.
So it did sound like you seemed to talk about the show floor and how more interactive that is, because that is one thing that always seemed to kind of like, I remember where I would basically just kind of like walk and not really engage a lot of the vendors. Some of the earlier shows that I would go to, but more and more going there because I want to learn more about what is actually offered and available to the profession. And so let me just listen to them, let me hear their spiel and all this other stuff, scan my badge, and get some information later on down the road. But
get on the mailing list, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like just this nice open casual dialogue about what it is, what they do, what they can do for you, those kind of things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like the attitude of the people in the booths is generally of how can we help you? And I know it's like that at the AIA also, but you always feel like the goal of getting somebody's information captured is the highest goal at AIA. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, let me scan your badge. Let me scan your badge.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
This is not like that at all. I don't think there's any badge scanning. Like, it's just not I didn't experience that once at this conference. Nobody was trying to scan my badge. There was a couple people who wanted to take a picture of my badge who were not vendors just so that they could look up my podcast or remember my name, right? But that was it. That was the extent of badge scanning that happened at this conference. The other part of it was the keynotes where they basically announced their new thing. And so the big thing this year for everybody, for all three of their main areas of focus was Autodesk AI. Of course, it has to be this year, right? Because everybody is talking about AI all the time, and this is a technology conference, and so this is the place. And I have to say, I don't fully understand what Autodesk AI means. I think it's more of a marketing, and I think we'll see more as time moves on, but I didn't get the sense. Because what I've noticed in tech is that what we used to call algorithms and generative design, and there's been a bunch of names for things that are driven by programming, right? Mm-hmm. Now people are calling that AI. And those are not the same thing. They're not the same thing, right? So I think it's because it is fashionable to say AI right now. And I'm not trying to say that that's what Autodesk is doing. They might be doing that, and I just don't know if that's what they're doing. And I kind of feel like, especially with the AEC side of things with Autodesk, where there were not very many new announcements, they've announced stuff throughout the year. This was not the place that they made new announcements really in AEC stuff. And they just are applying AI to some of those tools. And some of those tools are using real artificial intelligence, large language models to train things so that they can do simulations much faster than they could do math-based simulations before, for example. So they announced a tool earlier this year called Forma. I don't know if you guys are using it at all, but it's like a earlier design tool.
But yes.
Yeah, so it's available to people who already have like the AEC suite. And it's a good tool for doing simulation early in design. So you can simulate different building configurations. You can apply environmental simulations to that and actually see with data, sun exposure, wind, noise. Like they've been adding a bunch of features throughout the year. And a lot of that is AI. But what's Autodesk AI is my question. I don't think we really know the answer yet. So I feel like it's kind of Autodesk might think differently, but I feel like it's kind of a placeholder name for stuff because everybody's talking about AI. And of course, Autodesk is a publicly traded company. And so they have to be doing AI too, right? Because if they're not, then people might want to invest their money somewhere else, right? So I kind of feel like, just being realistic about it all, that may be what's going on there. I don't know. I wasn't like blown away with anything that was like truly AI. There was no new tool announced that was like, here's exactly what you can do with AI in the AEC market. So,
I mean, it sounds like a heck of a lot more fun, in my opinion, than the AIA convention in a way.
Yeah.
because it sounds like it's far more engaging. And I would love to have because every time we talk about this, and you're not the only person who I know that's gone to this. As I said, I had a bunch of other friends that there, and I've already had a couple of people like downloading me on like how exciting they were, because they were going to go to the AIA convention and then decided that, oh, if I'm going to use my money, the professional development money, for something, a lot of our BIM managers and stuff, and they're like, we would probably get more out of going to like, learning more about the software that we're helping the firm adopt and use and train people on and things like that. And so they ended up going and doing that. And it would really behoove maybe the AIA, and probably they were there, or hopefully they were, just to see what a successful.
Maybe there were people there, like delegates, but
yeah, just as like help. Let's just call them spies. I mean, everybody's stealing signs right now.
Just to give you an idea, I had a very nice long conversation with Evelyn Lee. So yeah. Somebody was there. Yeah. I mean, and not like
well, there you go.
Not from the AIA, but as another AIA member and president-elect of next year.
She's. Right? So. I was going to say, come on now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's.
Well, I guarantee you,
there's not far that you
can
get from being the AIA.
They didn't send her, but it's one of those things where it's true. Like. I'll tell you the difference. There's two things that I think of when you're talking about this. Number one is, for a BIM manager, this is somebody who goes to this conference is absolutely going to get more value out of going to a conference like this, because it directly impacts their day-to-day job. Whereas like, you go to a conference on architecture, it is a very different, it's a different vibe, it's a different message. It's much more about the profession as a whole. A BIM manager, like their whole life is technology. Their whole life is like solving problems on a day-to-day basis on projects. And that is what the courses at AU are all about. But the second thing that I'll tell you, like the big difference I feel like here is because the architectural profession does not feel like a community to me.
Right.
There are small pieces of community in it, right? There are knowledge communities set up by AIA and Monterey Design Conference. I would probably put that under a different umbrella. That feels more like a community to me around architecture than what the AIA conference is. AU is a community. I mean, it might be a community of nerds and it might be a community of technology people, right? But people go there and they get way more out of it because it's their people. And so if there was something to kind of glean from this conference compared to the AIA conference, is that we've got our group of people, right? We've got our listeners, we've got our friends, we've got people who we've known for a long time on social media, Twitter, Facebook groups, Entree Architect community, etc. Like we have a community, but I don't think that's not really talking about the whole of the profession. The profession at large is very insular. It is very siloed. It's very exclusive. And I don't mean like exclusive, like it's pushing people away, but we are bred and programmed to compete with other people.
Yes.
And so that's what I mean. Like it's like there are barriers. Everyone's wearing a mask. And at AU, it is all about sharing workflows. How do we fix this? How do we solve this? How can we be better? Whether people do that or not is another thing. But that is the premise behind it all. And I feel like that's what really makes this conference feel different from AIA conference. Yeah.
I agree with everything up to the point of I've never been to an Autodesk University. And am always jealous when you go, only because you come back with great stories, experiences, you meet new people, you learn about new and kind of exciting things that really have an absolute huge impact on our profession. And yet for some reason, we seem to be so disconnected with it.
Yeah, right. And I mean, it is exclusive in that it is really focused on the tech side of the profession, right? And so on that way, there's a lot of people who will just self-select, opt out, right? They'll just be like, that's not for me. But I feel like if you look at it from an architectural point of view, like there's this very psychological aspect to the work that we do. And thinking about community and people and interaction and communication, all of those things, I can glean that layer out of AU and say that is definitely, it feels like it's missing from the AIA conference. So people may not want to go to a tech conference, but I still think there's something you could learn by observing what happens at a tech conference that is very successful.
I will actually say that probably the most that I got out of the last AIA conference was our trip to the Autodesk headquarters, and to really kind of see what is going on, to see, some of the inspirational things that can be done with the software.
Right.
What was amazing was that whole big display of not only just the data collecting and the design, aspect of things, of that mass timber skyscraper.
Yeah, right.
What was it, 88 stories?
Yeah. Produced
with software from Autodesk, of all of the different mock-ups, of all the different joinery of this, the skyscraper and the structure and everything else.
Yeah.
The whole thing about it is just dude, if this is what we're going to be able to do, this is great. And I was far more inspired by that, and seeing how even the stop motion stuff that they're doing and all of these other things that they're doing, I was more inspired and just more kind of captivated by this stuff. And it was so funny too, because of course I kind of went in there, we're going to go into the big evil of, Autodesk, they run everything kind of thing. And I go in there and I'm I was totally blown away. The incubator space, it's just how can we reclaim wood? And we have this thing that automatically scans and pulls nails out of timber so that you can reuse that timber and all of this other stuff without, how innovative is that? That if that isn't trying to reduce your carbon footprint, by kind of really truly recycling building material, I don't know what else is. And it's not architects doing it.
Right. Yeah, it's a startup. Yeah, I think that artist in residency, that's what I kind of equate it to. I think they use the term residency, right? Yeah. But it's
yes, they did.
They have these startups come in and do a residency at their R&D lab on the pier in San Francisco, and they have another facility in Boston, which is much larger. And then those people who are accepted into that program have access to the Autodesk facility and all those resources. It could be CAM, it could be CNC, it could be 3D printing, it could be robotic. And so it's not just software. And I think that's what what's really interesting. And to your point, like they're actually doing something physically different in the architectural realm, right? When it comes to sustainability, and it's real stuff. It's not just theoretical. It's not just research. It's not just software. It's physical things. And that's what was so fun for us to be at that on the pier and tour that facility, was that it's all real. This is all stuff that's actually happening. It's like a workshop. And what I've heard is that the one in Boston is another level. It's so much bigger and so much more. Ooh. So it would be cool to go there sometime. But
time for us to get a tour.
I think what's
get in on
it does open your eyes to all of the different ways that they are trying to get involved in the different communities that they have their tentacles out into, right? So if it could be film and visual effects, it could be infrastructure, it could be architecture and engineering. And I think what they see is this, like anybody who offers consulting services or builds software for different verticals, they get to then connect the dots between those verticals and create value because they see it all. And to me, that's really where the potential lies, because architects, we get in our echo chamber, we get in our tunnel,
right,
and we don't look outside of it. And so when it comes to business models, or it comes to innovation and so many other ways, they can actually help us do that. They can actually take a case study from the visual effects industry and apply it to their customers in the AEC industry and help their customers pivot. That's one of the things that they showcase during the keynote actually with this project that is called Project Phoenix, and it's in Oakland, and it's I think it's 300 units of modular prefabricated construction. And so like there's a company called Factory OS, and they teamed up with Autodesk Research and another architectural firm, which is a 3-letter firm. I think it was like MBP or something like that. But they are basically working together to create a solution through technology, sustainability, to come up with a new way of doing something. And that might be a fun episode for us to kind of get those people on the show and talk about, because it just shows you like the power in this collaboration and getting outside of our tunnel of, we deliver projects like this. That's how we do it. That's how we've always done it. That's how we're going to continue to do it. They're like, what if we rethink that? And they showcase studies like that to help us see that there are other ways to do things and be change makers in our industry. And so I feel like, again, there's extra value as an architect going to a thing where they have a slice through all these verticals and they start to connect the dots. And they show an example, like a case study, and then it gets your gears turning. Like, oh, like how could we do that? How could I do that? How could my firm do something like that? They're actually really doing it. Like, it's not just on paper. It's not just paper architecture. It's a real project. They're really building it. So it's things like that I think are inspiring to see at a place like this, much more so than anything that I saw at the AIA. And now, granted, when I was at the AIA conference, I was stuck in a booth, right? So I got to go see the keynote with the Prime Minister from New Zealand, but that was the only thing, but aside from these extracurricular activities that we did after hours. But like during the conference, I missed out on a lot of it. And I'll say that's another thing that's very different for me this time, which was, I got to do what I needed to do at this conference, and I was not tethered by anybody's expectations. I don't work at a firm, right? And so nobody was saying like, you have to do a report and bring it back to us. You have to hit these specific topics. Right. And so for me, it was very freeing to be able to go and experience that. So that was super positive for me as well.
Again, like I said, I can just live in jealousy.
It is a good time. So I do recommend this conference. Even, no matter what you feel about Autodesk, I think there's a lot of value to be derived from this kind of conference, and it doesn't really matter who the main banners are for. There's so much more there. There's so many more layers to the onion.
No, honestly, like I said, you get one impression of it, especially it's just like, oh, it's that software that takes forever to load, or it's 45 minutes to sync a model, or it crashes, or it does this, or it does that. The more and more that I learn about it, and I by no means am even remotely okay at it, to be quite honest with you, but I will say that 9 times out of 10, most of like how a model gets broken, it's all user error, user carelessness, and things like that. That aside, when everybody thinks about like Autodesk, and we've been thinking about Autodesk for, in our careers for decades,
the
because,
whole time.
We go back to exactly. Right. One blip where I was using MicroStation. Other than that, it's always been Autodesk and AutoCAD to Revit. And we always kind of like equate them to the big evil. But when we got a chance to see, and I don't mean to harp on this again, but when we got a chance to see all of what they do, and they do a lot, I was impressed, and my impression changed, because it's like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I'm learning that you do a hell of a lot more. I mean, even to the point of medical adjacent research. All of the things that is being done with this stuff is really interesting. So when maybe that Autodesk AI finally, catches up, we'll report back and talk a little bit more about that. So thanks for sharing what you're not supposed to share, because when you go to, Vegas, you're not supposed to talk about what happens there. Kind of glad
no
you
one
did,
listens to this podcast.
It's kind of really interesting.
It's fine. It's just between you and me. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So we will talk about the sphere more. We've got ideas and
teaser.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So stay tuned.